How did talk to me? I mean, you said Women of Honor. Obviously, we went to Chicago. You went to Chikara. How did Officer Magnum Canine come about? Before we get to you, no offense, let's talk about
No
Officer
worries.
Magnum.
I'm actually super okay with this. And usually he leads the conversation. Yeah, Chikara has been my home now for about 2 years. I lost my first dog tragically the day after Christmas, and
That's terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that.
I'm glad he's resting because he had a lot going on, and it would have been really hard for him to take all the medicine he was on. And so I thought, okay, like it was just a really hard time for me because he was my best friend. And I started to be like, all right, I got to go to shelters. Maybe I'll help out other dogs. And I was looking at puppies and like, all of the shelters, they try and give you all the puppies. And I'm walking by and seeing these older dogs, and they're about a year old, 2 years old. And I see Officer Magnum in this little cage. And I just walk up, like he's got those paws and that face. And I just put my hand up on the cage to kind of lean in. And he like jumped up and put both his feet on my one hand. And I was like, oh, this is it.
There's my guy. That's all. That's all. That's it. That's how it happens.
Yep. I tried to like leave and be like, no, someone else is gonna get him. And I went back the next day and adopted him. And then I went to practice. I adopted him, got his paperwork, and went to the Chikara Wrestle Factory. And he became like the Thunder Pup because he had that Thunder vest on. I didn't know if the bumps and the sounds in the ring would give him anxiety, but he would just sit there in his little Thunder vest and watch practice. And and then Mike Quackenbush said, "Do you think that Thunder Pup would be interested in becoming part of the Chikara roster?" And so I consulted with him. I had a meeting with Thunder Pup, and then he very gladly accepted and became Officer Magnum. And he comes out with the force, and it's awesome. And he just loves it. He loves the school venues, like he loves doing zoomies around. He likes to pretend he's part of practice, where he like barks at people in the ring when he thinks they're not doing a move right. It's pretty wonderful.
That's awesome. Does he get a cut of the merch sales? Is my question.
Any merchandise that has been crafted for Officer Magnum helps me pay for his insurance, his food, any medical bills he has, his grooming. I mean, I bathe him, but like he needs his nails and all that other stuff, and so it just kind of goes to him. Any extra, like some fans have bought T-shirts of ours where we were both Pokemon, and I split it with him, and he gets those like really big beef pizzle gimmicks, those rawhides that he loves. So any of that, I just kind of put in a little wallet I have for him, separate to go to his health care and fun.
That's awesome. And if anybody's listening and you're thinking about you want a dog, adopt a dog. Don't be the person that buys a dog. There's a million dogs in shelters. Adopt a dog. Don't be a jerk.
He's been my best friend. He is an ESA certified pet, so he's my travel buddy. And every locker room has been so amazing. I'm so grateful for all the shows we've been at where everyone will like, does he need to walk? They'll take him out. Like they'll bring treats for him. They have been so loving. It's really, really melted me. The families that we've created as a team, with just bringing him to shows and stuff. And usually I find him in the back, snuggling one of the roster members on the floor. So it's always a good time.
Well, listen, the next time you're wrestling in the Northeast, we got a couple of rawhides, courtesy of the All Night Long Wrestling podcast for Officer Magnum. That's for sure.
Ooh, thank you. Oh, he's gonna be so pumped.
You're very welcome. Now, tell us about how your time in Chikara. We're talking about Officer Magnum. Tell us about you and how that gimmick evolved, like from the squirrel to where you are now.
Oh, it has been an amazing ride. It's been an amazing ride because I personally love the squirrel. Right, it was my own brain just kind of like working, and I needed to put a cap on it. When we were going to be the Rumble Bees, me and Travis Huckabee, it was you're going to be bees, and it was very interpretive. We were allowed to interpret that the way we needed to. We're bros, and that was it. And I was like, "Ooh, okay." So I did a lot of research. My favorite Marvel characters are like Black Cat. So I kind of like favor in the Spider-Man. I do love my Wolverine, and obviously Thor. So I kind of dug a little deeper into the Avengers, being like, what inspiration? And then I found Hank Pym and the Wasp. And I was like, ooh, like that's awesome. So I kind of dove into that a little bit on my own there. I had Lufisto. I asked her, and we were wrestling. What can we do with the storyline that she's going through, and she's doing this, the owl, and she's doing her whole other thing. So she murdered my drink, she broke my lollipop, and then she cut my tail off. And then that
Wow,
allowed me to,
that is brutal.
yeah. Yeah, it was great. She's an amazing human. She was wonderful to work with. I have learned so much from her. And it was so funny too. She breaks the lollipop, like the giant one that I had, and it bounced, and like it just missed a fan. Like it went, hit the ceiling and hit the floor. It was awesome. Like I can't wait to watch it back. But yeah, it was all of that. It was like, come on, like what, like do you wrestle? Like she came at me, like you got all these gimmicks, but can you wrestle? And then she cut the tail off. It allowed me to play a lot with Travis Huckabee, who really enjoys that world of sport technical wrestling. Like he's the golden grappler, and I bring all of my craziness to the equation. So doing promos were always my favorite with him, because I'd never tell him what we were gonna say, and I'd never tell him what I was gonna do, and then I would just like come in loud, and usually we'd have to do a retake or two because I'd make him laugh.
There are some of those really good promos on YouTube, by the way, and you could tell he definitely is trying to hold it together when you're talking. That's for sure.
So, and a lot of this arc gave me the freedom of more technical wrestling. I enjoy it. I think it's beautiful. I think when it's done right, it's just a beautiful dance. And I love all of that compact with huge moves. Like, if you can gorilla press me over the top into something and I catch the floor on the way down, like, great, let's do it. Like, I really want to tie in that grace with that big bang. And so I've designed the gear to kind of be our version of a superhero, right? I just grew up liking comics so much that now I get to make sparkly spandex to do my magic moves in. And I was like, oh, what do I want to look like? Oh, yeah, I want to look like that. So the B is my design with the 4 dots that go on my face. And I've just had so much fun doing it. I love falling on an apron or falling off an apron. And we have some really big stuff coming up, because at Tag World Grand Prix, Travis had made that stipulation where if we don't win, we are disbanded.
Well, let's not talk about the if we don't win. We don't want to put that negativity out into the universe. Now that the creativity that you have, you think that's one of the reasons why you didn't enjoy Ohio Valley so much, because there are very few places that'll give you that amount of creative freedom. I think for somebody like yourself, that's just so important.
Yeah, I found it to be what's the word I'm looking for? Very enclosed, like a bubble within itself, right? Like it's a vortex. Very old school mentality. And I just did not enjoy it. I found it rough unnecessarily. And it definitely would have, like, I quit like 3 times there. And then I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't need this type of environment. That's not for me. And having some place like the Wrestle Factory where you'd be like, well, what can we do with this? Or how can we be in service to the match? How can we be in service to the fans and the viewers? What can we bring to the table as a yes? It provides much more creativity, much more learning, and you can see really what you can do and what you're capable of that way. It's a more positive environment.
Sorry, I think a lot of fans are realizing that now, because there are so many alternatives to what people are used to with just the WWE. I mean, now thanks to the internet, you could find professional wrestling anywhere. You could watch Chikara, you could watch, Ring of Honor, you could watch NXT. There's so many different alternatives, so you're not kind of stuck or pigeonholed to one particular form of sports entertainment. And I think that's what's great about the business. I mean, they just sold out the All In show with the Bucks and Marty and Cody, 11,000 seats or something like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's such a good time to be a professional wrestling fan, as long as you are, you keep an open mind. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, as long as everybody's safe right now. That's how I feel, at least.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I was just recently in Sendai. I worked at Sendai Wrestling with Meiko Setamura. It was an amazing trip, and getting to see how they do things and how they put matches together, and the crowds, and just the way they work, and the training facility. It's another world, and it was beautiful to kind of see that that's also a thing, and it's happening, and it's great, and everyone works together, and they work really hard. And it comes off amazing, and you can see the passion in the ring. Just a different form and a different style.
And was that your first trip over to Japan?
Last year, I got to work with DDT and Tokyo Joshi Pro. So I went out there for a week with Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan was out there at the time. And so I got to do both of those shows. But because Mako Setamura does work with them as well as everyone, so I was also able to work with Sendai girls. And what a great lot of girls. Wow, there's some talent coming in. They're young, too. They're 2-3 years in and spectacular performers. I was really blown away by that. And they also have a couple people from Marvelous that come in and do shows. And they had Shiro there as well. I got to see that match live with Mako. It was awesome. So that was my second time there, but first time in Sendai, where I got to go to like 3 other towns too. I got to do Sapporo and Fukushima. So cool.
And the fans over there are just so different than the fans over here. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have a preference?
I like the difference. Like, I like the change of pace because you do get used to a certain fan base, right? I do have a soft spot for for Beyond fans as well because they participate in a different way than our Chikara fans participate, and both of those are completely different to the Japanese fan base, and they're very silent. But it does make you hone in on a lot of other skills in the ring as a performer to make sure that you're tight without having to say anything. There's a lot less saying things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so. I mean, sometimes you could literally hear a pin drop, and I think what a lot of I don't want to use the term uneducated, but maybe a lot of the fans who aren't used to that think that just because the crowd is silent, they're not appreciating. When actually, couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, they're silent, but they're watching. And heel and face there, they get chants, they get cheers for the good work they're putting in. So like if a heel does something spectacular, like they will clap for you. They appreciate the work that you're doing as the villain. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's such a different world, but it's so cool just to be able to, like I said, watch those things and experience, the different atmospheres, the different crowds, and so for people who have maybe seen you a little bit and they're not completely familiar with you, what matches would you say, hey, this is an example of who I am as a professional wrestler. This is what I'm most proud of. What matches would you tell somebody who's never seen you work, watch?
Ooh, so there's a lot on the stream right now on Chikaratopia. And in conjunction with that, I have been working with WWR very, very similarly. So if you guys have a subscription to Chikaratopia, hop on there. Anything later in the season, and I've also just wrestled Fire Ant, which is one of my favorite matches, as well as Hollow Wicked in Chicago. Like those are so much fun. I had a great time. They're really intense, and just if you watch Tag World Grand Prix too, the Rumblebees wrestled Janelope, and I would say that's one of my top 5 favorite matches.
Definitely. So that would be, and Janelope is Joey Janela and Penelope Ford, for those who don't know, and they're a very popular tag team right now. So that's got to be a great match. I would look forward to seeing that one. What do you have coming up? What's on the horizon, and what can we expect from you the rest of this year?
Woo! My schedule is such a blur, and I'm so pumped. I'm going to do a signing this weekend in Virginia, and then I'm heading over to Pro Wrestling Magic, and there's a tournament happening there. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of great women there putting in the work. And then there's Anniversario coming up at Chikara. So please hop on the events. Come see us live. Come pet Officer Magnum. He's got Wrestle Buddies now. It's great. And
that's awesome. That is fantastic.
It's my favorite so hard. It's so wonderful. And anywhere you catch me, 99% of the time, Officer Magnum is going to be with me. There's WWR shows coming up at the end of the month. And every Saturday, pretty much, minus I think once a month, there's going to be a Chikara show. So I'm traveling back and forth to them, and then I'll be in Chicago at some point. Like, I follow me on Instagram at Regulation Solo Darling. Follow me on Twitter at Solo Darling. Like, straight up, no fluff. Like, it's just me.
Make sure you're looking at that on the social media. Also, don't forget ProWrestlingTees.com search Solo Darling on there. There is some awesome shirts. And I'm hoping there's going to be another Officer Magnum shirt coming out soon.
Yes, we're actually designing a couple right now, and they will be on our Etsy shop as well. If you go to Solo Darling